All right, people, good evening. Let's polish off what happened yesterday. Let's finish her off and talk about the tight ends. So, when you're talking about tight ends for the Seahawks right now, obviously it needs to be said that with the roster in its current state, you can't really fit another tight end on the roster. So, let's discuss that first because before we talk about drafting a tight end, what it needs to be understood what drafting a tight end would mean because it's very rare an NFL team carries four tight ends. And right now, the Seahawks have their starter, Noah Fant, on a $7 million deal. They have Will Dissly in the second year of a 3 year deal that has already had, I believe, at least some of the guarantees vested, so he's not going anywhere. And then you have Colby Parkinson, who finally actually started doing stuff last year. So to bring in another tight end, you're going to have to get rid of one of those guys. So does it make sense to get rid of Colby Parkinson when he's super cheap and is now actually doing stuff? And I mean really doing stuff. He's been a good blocker, and he's helping you as a pass catcher too. I don't think that makes sense. Are you getting rid of Will Dissly after his guarantees have already vested? Probably not. It's not like anybody's going to trade for him when he's coming off that injury. And he was playing fairly well before he got hurt. So you're stuck with Dissly, I think. So if you're going to bring in a tight end in this draft, that probably means you're trading Noah Fant. So understand that before we start this conversation. Now, I think most people will be okay with the idea of trading Noah Fant. He was good last year, but he wasn't great. There were some nice things about him. He blocked a little bit better than I think people expected. I don't think he dropped a pass in the regular season. I think his hands were clean, but he didn't even give you 500 yards. He didn't do anything crazy over the top. There were plenty of games where he was a complete non-factor. He had that one game against the Cardinals where he detonated, and then other than that, there were some games where he was okay. And at the end of the day, he was solid, but not anything that I think anybody is married to. So if you want to go this route, it pretty much involves trading Noah Fant for a fourth round pick. So just understand that if you do that, you're looking at Will Dissly being your number one tight end, who has gotten seriously hurt in 3 of his 5 NFL seasons. You're looking at Colby Parkinson, who, by the way, actually kind of wasted his first 2 seasons in the NFL because of injuries while we're at it. And then you're looking at a rookie being your tight end group on a team that really, really likes to use tight ends. With that being said, there were 3 guys I want to go over from the combine yesterday. The first guy is a guy who I'm going to definitely get demonetized trying to pronounce his name, so honestly, I hope we don't draft him. But that's really the only reason I don't want to draft him. It's Zach Kuntz. Let's go with that. Zach Kuntz, Old Dominion. I believe he transferred there from another smaller school, and he wasn't massively prolific in college, but the combine was his friend. 6'7", so the dude is big. He actually, I think, measured officially 6'7.5". So tall, weighty, 255 pounds, got plenty of girth to him. Arms long, 34 inches. Hands are big, 10 and a quarter. So in terms of the size, in terms of the bulk, in terms of the measurables, wow, we're off to a good start. And he almost had the fastest 40-yard dash of any tight end. 4.55. The dude was flying. Not the greatest 10-yard split, but for a guy this size, still really, really, really good. And he had a 40-inch vertical, 10-foot, 8-inch broad jump. His 3-cone was really good, 6.87. His 20-yard shuttle was great, 4.12. Both, actually, I think all 4 of those categories, he was number 1 of all tight ends. And to give you an idea about this 40-yard dash, there was one guy who had a better 40-yard dash as a tight end. It was Will Mallory from Miami. Will Mallory is like 3 inches shorter, much lighter, much smaller. And I'm not throwing shade at Will Mallory necessarily because I think he's a pretty good prospect as well. But Zach Kuntz almost almost had a better 40 time. He was 1/100th of a second away from having a better 40 time despite being a much bigger player. So this guy's a phenomenal athlete. His catching session wasn't the greatest. Like sometimes he's a chest catcher a little bit. He doesn't have the greatest hands in the world. But if you wanted to really roll the dice with a guy you could probably get later in this draft with Zach Kuntz, then I would be okay with that because the potential is so high here. Now, granted, he's probably going to take a little while to get up to speed in the NFL, like Colby Parkinson did, maybe for slightly different reasons. But going into the season with Dissly, Parkinson, and Kuntz as your tight ends is kind of a scary proposition, but I would respect it because this guy's talent is off the charts. Next guy I'm going to talk about here, this would be a little more comfortable because Darnell Washington is probably going in the second round in the draft. He is probably the second tight end off the board. Honestly, I feel like he should be the first tight end off the board. I think this guy is off the chain awesome. Darnell Washington, underused tight end at Georgia. The combine treated him well. Very, very well. And we would probably have to spend like a second round pick, a high second round pick on Darnell Washington to get him. So if you bring him in and you trade Noah Fant, no problem. Darnell Washington immediately slides in to be your number one tight end. Don't worry about it. He's got it on lockdown. Phenomenal blocker, and he's bringing elite size to the position. 6'7", 264 pounds. So he's got 10 pounds on Zach Kuntz. His arms are a little bit longer as well, almost 34 and a half inches, just shy of 34 and a half. Hands, 11 inches, massive hands. He's going to catch just about everything he gets his hands on. And for a guy of that size, these results are mostly incredible. 40-yard dash, 4.64 seconds for a guy this size. Sign me up for that. The vertical jump, okay, that's weak. You would probably struggle to be a vertical jumper too if you were this big. But his broad jump was good. 10 feet 2 inches. I can live with that. From a dude of this size, sign me up. And he had a really good 20-yard shuttle as well. 4.08 seconds. Actually, that was better than Zach Kuntz's. Kuntz's was 4/100ths of a second slower. So Darnell Washington had the best shuttle in this combine for a tight end. And Zach Kuntz was second. So he showcased really good athleticism as well. And unlike a guy like Kuntz, this guy is bringing actual elite ability to potentially catch the ball to the table here. I'm not saying it's already completely taken care of and everything is good, but this guy should be ready to play a lot of snaps from day one. So if you wanted to invest big in a tight end, if you wanted to move on from Fant, salvage a fourth round pick, and just go, okay, we're turning the keys over to Darnell Washington, phenomenal blocker. He's almost like another offensive lineman out there. He's huge. He's got huge hands, long arms, good athlete, maybe even a great athlete, honestly. I would have no beef with that. I didn't think I was going to be on board with drafting a tight end in the first 2 days this year, but Darnell Washington with that great combine kind of locked it in for me. I'm down for it. Last guy I'm going to talk about here is another guy that Seahawks fans have discussed. This would be a first rounder, probably. Michael Mayer, almost certainly going to be the number one tight end in this draft. I never really understood it. I never really got the appeal. Well, okay, I get the appeal, but I never really wanted to do it. And this is going to be a guy who I think we can say had a mixed combine and didn't really do anything to endear himself to me. This guy's probably going to be a first-round pick, and I just didn't see the stuff in this combine that made me want to spend a first-round pick on him. Now, don't get me wrong. His catching session was really good. He moved well. He ran good routes. He caught the ball well. He, excuse me, he looks like a football player. I'm not taking that away from him, but athletically, it's just not there. and that's okay. He finds a way to be a very productive NFL player anyway, but I just don't see the first rounder there. His size is okay. He's 6'4.5", which, I mean, decent, workable, but he weighs about as much as Zach Kuntz did, and Zach Kuntz was almost 3 inches taller. So it's not like he's extraordinarily big. His arm length is okay. His hand size is okay, but I'm not seeing any kind of a monstrous talent or monstrous athlete here. And his combine results were, well, expectedly bad, but bad. 4.7 40-yard dash. Not fast. Not good acceleration. 1.66 10-yard split. Vertical jump, 32 and a half inches. Broad jump, not even 10 feet. We were expecting this, but this is kind of what I'm saying. It's like I'm looking at this, and I just see a guy who will probably be really good in the pros because he is a good route runner. He moved well around like the cones when he was running routes. He's going to be a good NFL player, but I don't see the freakish upside that makes me think, yeah, our tight end room is pretty good. We could go into 2023 with the tight ends we have, and it would be fine. But let's bring in this guy with one of our first round picks. So I don't know if it's fair to call Michael Mayer one of my losers, but he didn't do enough to make me think he should be a Seahawk. I'll leave it at that. Okay, so that was my look at tight ends. We just looked at 3 guys because I I just don't see a lot of point in looking at a lot of tight ends in this class. There are a few guys who might sway me to shake up our tight end room, move Noah Fant, and move on, but only a couple guys. I wanted to take a look at them. That's what I think. Let me know what you think. Do you disagree? Any other guys you want to take a look at? Let me know. See you guys later. Go Hawks. Hope to see you on Twitch tonight.